Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are talking about batching it, baby. All about content and how to create this content machine. Now, we talked a little bit in our previous show. If you haven't seen it, you definitely want to catch this theme that we have about content, social media content, because we are diving into all the things that people need to know and honestly obstacles that we've run into in our business. And we do social media for other people, so it's just a reality of social media that's out there. So Kai is, I want to say, the master of content batching, and I say this because she can do it and I cannot accomplish this. And up until recently, I feel like I always thought batching content meant jamming everything into one day, and it never worked. So Kai, tell us what batching really is.
So, okay, I totally understand, because I think that's basically how it comes across, right? People are like, okay, you want to make it easier, batch your content, which in everyone else's mind, it means, okay, I'm going to go and create all of this content on one day. And so then they kind of give you some helpful tips, right? They're like, well, plan it out and then go and batch. And you're like, that's still me creating like 1,000 things to do, right? So that's actually not what batching looks like. And today we're going to actually talk about what goes into batching, right? And so it isn't, and I just want everyone to understand, this is customized to you. So batching is not everyone does the same thing. You do what fits you best. But if you watched our episode prior to this one, we talked about, creating your potatoes, and you saw that awesome video that we introed with. That I love that video. Every time I see it, it makes me laugh. But we talked about your content potatoes and your content fries, but really that was more the strategy piece. And that is something we would tell our girls in our group. We tell them, hey, that's something that you're going to do and revisit like every 4 to 6 months. That is not something you do every single time you batch. Could you imagine? That would
no. Well, and I think that's what we do when we do daily content. We're actually doing so much more work than we have to when we're trying to I got to put a post up real quick. Like in the big picture, it's taking you so much longer by doing that than to have this plan. And I think that's what I'm so excited about sharing, is the big picture of how this content planning works. And we go into more depth we have a workshop that we have linked in the chat. So if you really are confused or something just is too overwhelming, join us with that workshop. We'll talk about it at the end too, but we have to skim because we are doing fast shows. So if something, let us know in the chat. If you want more help, what are your questions? Let us know that you're watching with us too, so we can get you more info. But this batching big picture. And like I said, Kai is really good at this. I know you have an image. Do you want me to bring up the image?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, actually, you know what? Before we jump into the image, let's break it down for people, and then we'll get to that image.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay. So one thing to understand, once you sit down to batch, you're going to schedule it out. But when you do sit down to batch, the very first thing you're going to do is actually plan, right? So the planning is separate from the content creation. So we have the phases, right? When we talked about creating but figuring out what your potatoes and fries are, that's your strategy.
Like brainstorming it, right? Exactly. So essentially.
Exactly. So that's your strategy piece. This first part of your batching, now this is a part of the actual batching process, and this is your planning. So however many times you're going to do it, and just think of it this way. Like if I batch, I'm going to batch several things at one time, right? That is what batching truly is. It's just not doing it all at one time.
Thankfully, because it is a pain. I can't even imagine. I literally have done this process and gave up because it was so complex to do in one day. And it's almost exhausting. So this takes those pieces, you've broken it up into little pieces that we're going to go through. And then you just book a day for each one of those.
Exactly.
So the first one is strategy. And that I know we talk about themes, right? And we were talking about how, this is our content machine theme. We're using that concept of batching right now with you guys.
Right, exactly. So last week we had one potato where we talked about our like the strategy behind, you know, your content potatoes and your content French fries, right? And then you can see something that was created from that, and not specifically a French fry, but something that was in line with the same theme was that video that Tessa put up today, right?
Right.
And so when you think about batching, now is the part where we do the batching. And here are the things that you're actually going to put onto your calendar. So Tess, if you want to bring up that image, we can show them what we're talking about.
I am. Oh, it just goes right over the top of us.
That's okay. Let's hide behind it.
Take out our video and you can just see this giant image.
Okay, so you can see a few things right here. So you see that there's the content plan day. You see that there's a day where you're going to write your outlines. You see that you're going to make the potatoes, and then you see that you're going to create the French fries. Now, when we look at this, that's really what batching looks like. It looks like this. 1 hour, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to create my content plan. Okay. So this is where I'm figuring out what the theme is, you know, what is it based on the season? Are we leading up to something? Is it a theme like a subject, like, you know, money obstacles, or, you know, is there a holiday coming up? Like that's what you're thinking about. Then you're also going to think about the duration. How long does that actually take? Right. So it might be, I'm going to do 4 weeks of money obstacles. And so in those 4 weeks of money obstacles, that means I'm going to be planning for 4 potatoes. Right. And so that's really what you're content planning. If you don't mind bringing up that calendar one more time.
It just think right over us.
Yeah. That content plan right there, that is based off of you figuring out your theme, how long it's going to be for, you know, 4 weeks. And that's really where you start to figure out, okay, what do those potatoes look like? So that usually takes about 1 to 2 hours. I'd say give yourself about 2 hours when you do that for the first few times, just until you kind of get into a rhythm. Now that next part, which is writing outlines, this is specifically for your potatoes. Okay. So the content plan and writing outlines, those are both specifically focused on your potatoes. Has nothing to do with French fries yet. Okay. So when you write the outlines, this is really just a rough draft. Tess and I currently, you can see us on video. Well, we're behind the calendar, but you see us on video. And if you saw to my left here, whatever it is to you guys, but I see an outline, and this outline is keeping me on track because I tend to rattle on. And it's also just making sure that we stay on point and we're hitting the things that we need to hit. And that's essentially what writing that outline is.
It's just a Google Doc outline. Exactly. I mean, essentially just indented. Here's the 4 points that we want to hit. Yeah. So when you're outlining your, you know, what you're going to cover. So let's say you have 4 potatoes in the month, which is like for us, it's alive, let's say. So your potatoes going live, you have some things you're going to talk about. You have potato number 1. What's the title? Here's the things. Yeah. Potato number 2, here's the things. And all of them have to do with the same basic theme that goes back to everything that you're teaching, or, you know, what you're trying to accomplish with your social media in the first place, which usually leads to a sale, right? So right. Obviously with us, we have a workshop coming up. So everything is going to lead back to our workshop. And if we're not doing that, if we're just putting content up, it's not going to get you any results, right? You're just going to feel like you're working too hard. So you've got your outline, and back to this little guy, you've done your content plan, you've done your outlines. Let's say you've outlined your potatoes. Like that's in 1 day, 1 hour, maybe, right? And then
I'd say your outlines probably, I mean, it depends how well you know your subject. Like if you've spoken on something before, it's going to be really easy. And this is also the same whether you're doing a live video, whether you're writing a blog, whether you're creating a podcast, you're still going to do an outline just to make sure that you are hitting really your point, right? Now, some of you are amazing at extemporaneously talking, but most of us aren't. So I'd say create the outline until you really get to that point where you're like, man, I've talked about this 1,000 times. I can do it just like that. That's not us.
No. And then you're going to make your potatoes. So,
Yeah.
like going live, creating a blog, whatever the potato is. And I think in my little clip, we talk about what types of, potatoes you might have. Like the bigger long form we talked in the previous video about too, but it might be a podcast, might be a video, just recording a video. It could be a blog. It could be going live, whatever it is, it's a little bit more meaty, and then we can create these little French fries from it. But you're going to actually record or do the potato. So that one day, that one's more of a bigger commitment, right? So for us, I mean, we do ours weekly. So we have like half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour for us to prep and go live. Whereas somebody who's doing a blog might be able to write all 4 blogs in one day.
Yeah,
maybe.
Exactly. Now, should we go into the difference between live batching and, okay. So here's something I think a lot of people miss. When you go live, like Tessa and I do, just a heads up, it is a little bit more work. So here's the beauty of batching, right? When I used to create podcasts, which I can pre-record, I would schedule all of my interviews in one day. And then I would do all of my private, like, where it's just a solo podcast by myself in another day. And so how my schedule looked is like, okay, so let's say at the beginning of the month, I'd have my content planning day. And in that same day, I would do the content plan as well as I would write my outlines, right? And then
so you're doing day 1 and 2 content outline.
Exactly.
And then you've got
for me, right?
For you.
So because when I get into the zone, I like to stay in the zone. So I can work 12, 14 hours straight if I'm really focused, and I can just, bang out a lot of things. Whereas some people, they need, to change. Like I can only spend 2 hours or an hour here, and that's okay. You have to do what works for you because that's how you'll stay consistent. But for me, that's what it looked like. And so then I would have all of my interviews. And let's say that, and typically, because I really do like to get things out of the way, I would have like, I don't know, I probably would plan like 10 interviews within 2 days. And so I would just bang out all 10 interviews and have them done. And then next I would do my solo podcast. So I would do this within a span of a week.
Wow.
Okay. But I would also then be essentially done, right? I still had to edit and all those things, but those things I could do slowly. So I would then create my content fries after that. And I would do one thing at a time versus batching. But my batching process came from 1 week. And then I would just spend the next week, hey, I like that clip. I'm going to edit this. So next couple of weeks, I would spend doing that. So I'd spend 3 weeks to essentially create about 3 months to 4 months worth of content.
Wow.
And then I would be done. Now that's the difference between pre-recording something versus going live. Because when you go live, just like here, now what are we going to do? We take this video, we have to go chop it up. Now we're going to create our content fries. So if you bring back that calendar one more time.
Yes.
When you look at this calendar, right, we have the make potatoes. For us, this happens every week. So we make potatoes. So our content plan, and we could write outlines one time, a month. We could even do it for 2 months if we wanted to. But our making potatoes and creating our French fries, that's going to happen weekly for us.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And my consistency, I love doing weekly shows because it's a time, like I am consistent. It's always there. Whereas batching for me always was a little bit more of a challenge. I'm not as disciplined or good at batching together. So my batching was actually a weekly batch. Like I can do almost everything that I need to do for the show in one day with that live. I just dedicate the day to it. So everybody's different in what works well for them. Luckily, like I can benefit from Kai's ability, and we can kind of combine things, even give the whole thing, to our developers to make, images ahead of time. You can do a lot. It's just going to be individual for each person. Like your batching is going to look different, and it's going to be what can you do And is it actually making it easier for you?
Mm-hmm.
If it's painful, like we had in our thing, creating social media shouldn't be painful. If it's painful, you need to rethink. Let us know in the chat and we'll help you figure out why it's so difficult. And that could just be the technology that you're using. It could be how you're thinking of your planning process. Maybe you haven't fully thought through who you're trying to even market to. So there's a lot that can come into play. But then once you get your potatoes done, the making the fries part, if you do this right and you just know, I love how Kai describes this, but you just know, hey, I'm going to have a quote. I have a blog. It's easy for me to grab out a quote and maybe do a little audio recording of something I say in this blog. Like your fries are going to depend on your potatoes, and all of it has to just be going towards that common thread of where you want people to go.
Yes. So let me just go into those French fries just a little bit, because we do have something for you guys if you're interested to help you with those French fries, right? Here's the thing. We create a live, or let me go back to when I created a podcast. When I created a podcast, I already knew I was going to have a quote from the podcast. I was going to have about a 30-second clip of the podcast. One of them where it's something juicy, another one where it was a funny behind the scenes clip. And then I was going to have like an image. So I already knew what my French fries were. So if you joined us in the previous one, and if you haven't, go and check that out, because we talk about this, but we have already planned. When you did your strategy in that last session we had, you already planned what your fries are going to be, which makes life so much easier. Because now we create this live, and then what do? We go through, we look for a clip, a 60-second clip. We look for the quote. You already know what it is. So it shortens the amount of time that it's going to take you to actually create these fries, versus most people who are like, okay, I created this potato about batching. Now I'm going to go create a video, about a 60-second video about batching, about what I just did. Now that I'm going to create a new post, then I'm going to, and they're creating all from their brain. It might be the same topic, that still isn't batching. Batching is taking that potato and cutting it up. Now, it doesn't mean you can't create, like Tessa created that video in the very beginning. That did not come from this, obviously, because hello, here we are.
Yes.
It didn't happen yet. But
I can tell you that takes a lot of time and energy. If everything you do is what that one post is, it's going to be a lot of work, and it's something that you're going to give up on. And they're great as accent content. But when you're thinking, when you have your batching and you've got most of it planned out, you have more space in your brain for those. Hey, that would be a really cool piece for me to do.
So then it becomes more fun. Because number one, it creates more you have more space in your head, because you already know what you're talking about. It's not like every single day I got to come up with a brand new idea. It's like, oh, how can I make this funny? Or that's so much simpler. Going live is so much simpler, like on your Instagram stories, or just, any of those. It's so much simpler because you've already planned. So, the batching might be taking care of the meat and potatoes, or in this case, the potatoes and French fries. But then you get to have fun because you've cleared up all of this space. And now you can just have some fun on your social media.
Space and time. Yes.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, I think we did a great, I'm going to give you your little item to grab. And so let's add this. Oh yeah, it worked there. Okay. So we have a freebie for you, or I should say lead magnet, essentially. So you guys know we've talked about these all in our previous shows. This is the content fries. So you can get 25 content fries. I give away like 7 in this video that you can see over on our social media, like quote, image, sound clips. There's 25 total, plus you get a training video, and you can go sign up for it, and that gets delivered right to your inbox, and you'll have the training right there, so you guys can learn the rest of the process and make this as easy as possible. So I know we have to run. Kai, did you want to close us out? I know we usually do have a cheers, but I don't have a cup. So there we go. All right, high five.
Well, here is to creating your content potatoes, and the only fries that you'll ever get to have that won't add to your waistline.
Oh,
Eat as
I
many as you
love
like.
it. I love it. That's so awesome, guys. So the link to get to your 25 content fries is in the chat. Definitely follow. We're going to be here weekly because we are doing content potatoes every Thursday.
Yep.
And we look forward to seeing you guys live. Thank you so much. Have a blessed week.
Bye.
Bye.
Now here's where we awkwardly wait for the